Hi, my name is Jeremy Haskell, and this is your New Hampshire Jobs Report for January 2012 from jobsinn.nh.com, how New Hampshire gets to work. We've had a mild start to the new year, and with 2011 in the books, we can take a look back and see how the economy, and in particular the job market, fared throughout 2011. From a numbers standpoint, New Hampshire had an interesting year, starting out the year at 5.6% unemployment and ending up at 5.2%. But what really stands out is over the first half of the year, the unemployment rate dropped to as low as 4.8% before starting to increase over the third and fourth quarter. This is an interesting development for what had been New England's strongest and most stable economy. Looking at our first chart, we see that the number of companies actively posting open positions would seem to reflect the general steadiness of the New Hampshire employment market over the first half of the year. However, since a peak in July, there has been a declining trend in active companies. So while we were fairly consistent with between 300 and 350 active companies posting at any given time on jobsinn.nh.com, this is certainly a number we'll keep an eye on as we move into 2012. Another sign of instability comes when we look at the number of jobs posted over the course of 2011. While we did end the year up nearly 500 jobs, from 2,500 in January to 3,000 in December, the decline during the summer months is something to watch for in 2012. Typically, the New Hampshire economy shows an increase through the first half of the year before leveling off in the summer and having a slight decline at the end of the year. That last year's numbers did not match the historical fluctuations typical of New Hampshire's business cycle is certainly an area of interest. Things start to get interesting when we look at the top categories on jobsinn.nh.com as determined by the number of jobs posted within any given industry. This month, we'll take a look back at the performance of the top 6 categories and how they fared quarter by quarter over the last 12 months. New Hampshire does have a diverse economic structure, but the top categories remain consistent throughout the year, with manufacturing leading the way, followed by social services, sales and marketing, healthcare, administrative, and finance positions. Looking at our third chart, which shows a number of jobs posted in a bar graph by quarter, we see that there is another trend at work here. The first quarter is typically a slower time of hiring here in New Hampshire, with a big boost as we move into Q2, or April, May, and June. This trend continued this year, but what's interesting is that there was a steady decline quarter by quarter until we got to the end of the year to numbers that basically matched the first quarter. So what could be at work here? Well, first, these numbers are typical of the New Hampshire business cycle we cited earlier. What will be important to see in 2012 is what new industries will emerge as we see losses in more traditional employment. It is encouraging to see that sales and marketing and customer service remained high throughout the year, showing little fluctuation. As we move towards a more service-based economy, it'll be interesting to watch how these categories match up versus science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities, also known as the STEM sectors. Another important component of the job market is the types of opportunities being offered. In our fourth chart, we'll look at the top 3 categories of paid employment, being contractor per diem work, part-time jobs, or full-time opportunities. Looking at our fourth chart, we see that the numbers were fairly consistent throughout the year, particularly as they relate to contract or per diem positions and part-time jobs. The decline in full-time opportunities, which started in the third quarter of last year, is something we'll certainly keep an eye on as we move through 2012. As for the level of activity, this is the first year in a while that we saw a slow but steady decline in the activity on jobsinn.nh.com. As I mentioned earlier, New Hampshire had one of the strongest New England economies throughout what has been termed the Great Recession. And despite a bumpy 2011, we are hopeful that a new year ushers in a new sense of optimism. With more activity from smaller companies, big changes in enterprise hiring trends, and more people looking to take control of their own employment destiny, we expect to see high levels of activity throughout 2012. And as always, we'd like to hear from you and what topics you'd like to discuss. Share your questions, challenges, and successes. You can find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and obviously you have us here on YouTube. And that wraps up the Jobs Report for January 2012. I'm Jeremy Haskell. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, while you make a living by what you get, you make a life by what you give.